Thanks again for joining us, everybody. We have Tim Draper, the legendary Tim Draper, joining Noah Platinum today. Hello, Tim. Thanks again for joining us, and welcome.
Great. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this. This should be great.
Perfect. So without further ado, let's just start. I know that you have been actually an advocate for Bitcoin. You've been an investor and so forth. And now we have all these products actually being developed on blockchain. And now we have DeFi, decentralized financial. So if we can focus on that and perhaps look into the future, obviously when we were going back, blockchain wasn't that big. Obviously we had to do a lot of advocacy, and now we are here, and then we see this massive growth towards what is actually happening in this sector. So what do you think about that?
Well, that's usually the way new technologies happen. There's usually a lot of excitement about it because they're thinking, well, what great things could happen here? And then they say, well, they haven't happened yet. So then everybody loses interest for a while. And then over time, it quietly, engineers work harder, and eventually we get a product that gets to be much easier, better user interface than user experience than it was when it was just set up at the very beginning. And then it grows much, much bigger than anybody ever projected. The internet worked that way. I remember people saying, oh my God, this is going to be the greatest thing in the world in 1999. And then in 2001, it came crashing down, and people said, why would I ever put my credit card up on the internet? And how this is the, dot bomb and everything's bad. And then Amazon grows way beyond any of our expectations, and Google, Facebook, all of these things, Uber, all of these things have grown well beyond our expectations. The same things happen now with Bitcoin and the blockchain and the smart contracts. You see this big boom at the beginning in the end of 2017. Everybody was all excited. Bitcoin was up to $20,000. And then it came down. People said, wait, why? I can't even use this to pay my credit card. And now the easiest way for me to send you money right now is to just send you Bitcoin. It's so much easier than any other way. Otherwise, what do? I call the bank, ask them to wire it.
The fees are very expensive.
Very complicated and very expensive. Or I send you a check, or I swipe my credit card, and then the banks get 2.5% to 4% of that. If you're in another country, it has to go through Western Union. That can be anywhere from 8 to 16%. That just goes right off the top. So now, at the beginning, we knew we had a better currency. It's not tied to any political force. It's open, it's global, it's transparent. And then it went through a period where it wasn't very easy to use. And now it's easy to use. And it's all up from here. I expect Bitcoin and some of these other cryptocurrencies to be 10 to 100 times bigger than they are today. This is really an exciting time, and particularly during COVID, when all of a sudden people started to use it by just finally saying, okay, well, I'll get a Bitcoin wallet. I'll see how that works, and then they go, hey, it's pretty easy. And then they start spending money that way, and they go, oh wow, this is amazing. This is better than any fiat currency. And then the U.S. government prints $13 trillion, and people with Bitcoin are saying, oh my gosh, the dollar just dropped about 30% in value, and Bitcoin just staying the same goes up about 35%. So we're at a very interesting time. And you mentioned DeFi. Well, first you get this currency that's better than anything out there. And then it goes through this period that's sort of a bridge. And that bridge is now called DeFi, and it's all these financial vehicles that are available for dollars but weren't available before for crypto, and now they're starting to be available for crypto. And then they create the bridge to where we can operate our entire businesses just with Bitcoin. I have a vision that I think is going to happen, and I hope it happens quickly, where I'm in the venture capital business, where I can raise a fund completely in Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. I can invest in many different companies, all in Bitcoin, and they can pay their employees and suppliers all in Bitcoin, where it's all built on a smart contract, so that if one of the companies becomes a big unicorn, I don't have to do anything. It just drops, the money just drops into the wallets of all of my limited partners. And I think that is the future. And then if I can do that, then I save myself a fortune on accounting, bookkeeping, auditing, and using a smart contract, I save myself a fortune in legal fees.
You just disrupted the venture capital industry.
I think so. I think it's going to be a huge disruption. Right. And it's going to be great, so much better. Can you imagine? Not because the blockchain keeps perfect records. If you attach accounting to it, then you can keep track of not only your own, as a venture capitalist, your own investors, but you also can keep track of how all your entrepreneurs are spending their money. So you can catch problems well earlier before they happen if you see certain things going out, being spent the wrong way. And you wouldn't see that at all through the banks. This is a major opportunity. It's very exciting.
Basically, it's procession venture capitalism, where everything is kind of like personalized in a way that you're actually using a lot of like efficiency in terms of talents, also finding different solutions. And it's like basically using AI and machine learning. Obviously, it's an amazing system. You mentioned the COVID. I also wanted to ask you this question because now during COVID, everything went kind of like digital. But also half of the world is offline just because of like the populations in kind of like countries that they don't actually have internet. But the rest of the population now, they have to learn. And obviously, as you mentioned, the use for digital currency and even the digital applications have gone up. So how much contribution from COVID has been actually towards the digital currency in your predictions?
So I think COVID accelerated a little bit. A couple of months where it encouraged people who were just sort of curious about it to go ahead and do it because they had time on their hands. But I think that the spread of Bitcoin has really come because it's just better currency. The idea that I can easily send money to a bunch of employees who are not living in the U.S., that's a big deal. The idea that I can, if I created a movie, Star Wars, they have 15,000 credits on Star Wars at the end of Star Wars movies. Each one of them is supposed to get a quarterly check in the mail for their amount of this, whatever the profit thing is, whatever their waterfall is. And they're getting checks with stamps and envelopes and whatever. And it costs Lucasfilm about, I guess it's Disney now, about $7 to $10 every time they send one of those checks in the mail. And the checks, I've gotten checks like this for like 25 cents or 50 cents or whatever. It can't be a profitable enterprise for them. They could do it all in Bitcoin, just drop it into a bunch of wallets, and then you could go collect whenever you wanted and go spend it in Bitcoin. It's so much easier. All of commerce is going to be so much easier. And since we have this trusted third party, we won't have to pay the banks 2.5 to 4% every time we swipe our credit card, and the merchants don't have to work with a bank. They can just say, yeah, we accept Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin just drops into their wallet. So this is a major change, and there will be plenty of people, usually the bankers, and who are trying to resist this change. But technology wins all wars. It's always eventually technology finds the shining light, and it's coming. And clearly it's coming now. PayPal's using it, Square's using it. They're all saying, okay, this is better currency. Let's use it. We don't have to pay the bank 2.5 to 4%.
Exactly.
We've got a better deal.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Now the recent changes and also adaptation towards this kind of like using Bitcoin in their ledgers, for example, Twitter and PayPal. Now they're actually joining the club. Who do you think would be the next? And what is the impact of having big corporations like Twitter and PayPal using Bitcoin actually in their ledgers?
I think the next will be Visa and MasterCard and American Express. They'll start applying credit to Bitcoin. They've got to walk carefully because they count a lot on their relationships with banks. But and banks it's going to be difficult for banks moving forward. They've had a heyday. They've been so incredibly profitable over the last decade. Now it seems as though there's a better alternative to a bank. So I think they're going to have to adapt and create new products. I think you'll see, I think actually you'll start to see the consumer realize that this is a better way to operate. And you'll see the merchants say, we accept Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And I think that will be the next step. I think it's great that we do have DeFi products, and they continue to drive forward, and these DeFi products are making it so that I can do pretty much anything with my Bitcoin that I can with my dollars. But even better, they're finding things that can be done with Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies without that can't be done with dollars.
Exactly. And you also mentioned about the startups, about your fund as a VC investor. Have you invested in Bitcoin or in cryptocurrency projects? And what are you looking for in the future in terms of investing and investments? And what are your criterias, if you can?
Yeah, I think I've invested in something like 50 cryptocurrency projects. But what I do is I back the entrepreneur. And if the entrepreneur is doing something extraordinary, or they're very unique engineers and they're doing something really great, then I'll back them in their company, which, and then we like to align with our entrepreneurs so that we'll take tokens too. So that's how we ended up buying tokens in a lot of different.
I remember it was early back in 2017 and 18. And are you still looking into any portfolios in the cryptocurrency sector, or is it something else that looking for?
Well, we were early investors in the company that brought us Tezos and the company that brought us Bancor, and another company, Proppy, we watched for a long time, and then we invested, and we bought into those companies, and in buying into those companies, we ended up with tokens, and those are great projects. They're all fabulous projects. So, yeah, I think we will continue to invest to drive this new decentralized world. It's evolving. Clearly, Bitcoin is a replacement for the banks, but the these new technologies that are tied to Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, and when you combine it with artificial intelligence, you're seeing the beginnings of the transformation of the insurance business and the real estate business and government itself. You're going to see government go through a major change, and that is very exciting. That actually takes us to like an anthropological leap, where we in society, the internet helped move this, but we in society are moving from being tribal to being global.
The utopian?
I think so. But in the meantime, you're going to have all sorts of friction and resistance. And you saw the presidential debate and how they were on top of each other and picking on each other for personal things. I think that's because they see that something's very wrong with their current system. And they know something's coming and they don't know what it is. They don't understand it. But we know what it is. It's the decentralization of the world. It's the dissolving of geographic borders. It's the open and free world. It's free trade. It's free enterprise. And it's a world that has much more trust and faith in people and not borders. So I think we're getting there, and there will be plenty of resistance on the way, but eventually we all know there's a better way to operate. If you had a farm and I had a house and we didn't do a deal, then I'd die of starvation and you'd die of exposure. So we make that deal. Well, multiply that by the 8 billion people around the planet. Everyone is interconnected. We're all helping each other in one way or another. We're all interconnected and interwoven, and we're all benefiting from the fact that we've got 8 billion of us on the planet all helping each other. Well, if you put up trade barriers, if you have borders, that tends to limit you, and you get less of a benefit of that. So eventually we'll get to open borders, we'll get to being just global, and the world's going to be a lot better. Well, Bitcoin, the blockchain, smart contracts, all these decentralized currencies, all these decentralized platforms are leading us toward this new world. And I'm always looking for that kind of thing.
Exactly.
In an entrepreneur that takes us to a better place. Somehow, how do we get from here to some place 15 years from now that's way better?
Exactly what you explained. It's all being solved, or there's a solution by blockchain towards that. For example, the free trade, we can actually use the supply chain. We can always authenticate the supply chain, so that wouldn't be any issue even for the trades. For the immigration, we can always authenticate the source of the immigrants and their kind of identifications, so that wouldn't be an issue. And even for the voting, I believe there's so much applications of the decentralization of this platform that we can actually use, and the smart contracts. So I believe, and as you said, Bitcoin just doesn't bring itself, but also its platform to solve all these global problems. So hopefully the future would look so much better.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. There's no reason in the world that we shouldn't be using digital identity with a decentralized web. We shouldn't be doing digital voting, digital contract writing. Once we have identity down, that's going to be really amazing.
Exactly.
And we have a company, Unum ID, who's working on identity. So all you have to do is have this with you, and it'll show you, it'll guarantee who you are. We also have a company called Unstoppable Domains that's a decentralized free speech. So you can actually get you can get an Azam.crypto, and with Azam.crypto you can You can say whatever you want and no one can take it down.
Wow, that's amazing. No
And that's really
censorship.
valuable, particularly now when if you said something that somehow Facebook doesn't like, they take it down.
Well, probably
So
I would
much for
definitely
free
need that.
speech. So that's why the beauty of unstoppable domains is, and the timing of it is so good that now you can say, you can be in China and say free Tibet, or you can say, I don't like our new dictator, and you're fine. You go,
I
you're
think
fine.
we need to also create a solution for not to be imprisoned by that free speech, perhaps.
Right, right. Well, but I think that's what you get. You get this opportunity to say whatever you want. It's out there. And yeah, I mean, that is a great thing about the United States. We do have free speech here. A lot of people don't like it, and they try to muzzle you, or they try to say, oh, you don't really believe that, or whatever. But we can say whatever we want.
Well, that's amazing. Thanks again for your time today. I believe we got what we wanted in terms of blockchain, Bitcoin, and the future. We'll have you again for the Noah Platinum TV. So have a great day.
Terrific. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, Azam.
Bye-bye.